So recently I've fully caught up to Star Wars Resistance. I finished it all in one night and I fully caught up to the latest episode of the series. And I went into this series with really low expectations. I didn't expect much out of it at all. Not because I thought the series would be bad, but actually because of the target market it's aiming for, which is obviously kids. So I expected the humour to be quite cringy. I didn't really expect the story to be that deep, which isn't a bad thing by any means. But I just kind of went in with low expectations because obviously I'm not a child, so I probably wouldn't enjoy it as it wasn't based for me. But actually I've been having a ton of fun with this series. Not all jokes land, obviously some are really childish and they really do put me off, but this is a child show at the end of the day, so I have to excuse them. But some of the jokes actually do land for me, which is something I was really surprised by, and the plot's really good, and I'm actually really enjoying the characters as well. While Kaz can be annoying at times, I can definitely see that they're going for that immature arc that they usually do with these shows. For example, Ahsoka started off as immature, Ezra started off as immature, and now Kaz is also going through the same arc, and we'll see him mature as the show goes on. And already, 6 episodes in, we're already starting to see him mature. So today I'm going to be reviewing the latest episode, and I warn you there will be spoilers for this episode. However, if you're not interested, it's fine, you can stay around, I'll probably explain most of the key plot points, but I would recommend watching the episode because it's actually a really good show so far. So like I was saying, we're already seeing Kaz start to mature, as last episode he was really whiny about doing all the mechanics work. He said it wasn't his thing, he wanted to be a spy, he wants to be hands-on, I guess, with the Resistance stuff. He doesn't really get the fact that while he's working as a mechanic, he's actually helping the Resistance, as he's fitting in with the rest of the Colossus. But in this episode, he's already matured, and he already wants to get in on all the work with all the other people. He basically begs to let in on the work. So Tam reluctantly lets him help out, and he does mess up, but it's obvious in this show that when Kaz does mess up, he does have good intentions, so it's not as annoying as, say, a really cocky, immature type of style. He's like a good guy, but he's just a bit of a goofball. He just makes a ton of mistakes, he's not really good at things, but I mean, that's kind of relatable, and we've all been in those situations in school when, like, we mess something up and everyone laughs at you. I kind of feel like that's the situation Kaz is in 24/7, so I can relate to him. You know, I can see him start to grow on from this, but right now this is kind of the situation he's in. He breaks the part, I can't remember the name of it for the life of me, I think it's called a compensator, right? And Tam's really mad at him, obviously, because apparently it's a really expensive and rare part, and obviously Kaz has no money at the minute because he's not got his rich father to back him up all the time. So Kaz and his buddy Niku are thinking about how they can make money in the cantina, so they can buy Tam her compensator, and then they see someone talking behind them about a bounty on 2 children for 20,000 credits, which is quite a lot in Star Wars. So once again you get to see Kaz's naivety as he thinks, oh, these kids were wanted for 20,000 credits, they must be lost from their home. And his idea is basically he wants to return them home and also get money. It's kind of like a win-win in his books. I guess it's just part of his character, you know, he always has good intentions, but he always manages to mess it up somehow. But one thing he does do is he fixes it in the end. So he basically gets loads of people to go and look out, and he gets those turtle shell things that Miku's friends with to help look for them, and he kind of looks down on them. He's like, these guys aren't going to be helpful at all, they seem lazy. I'm not really a fan of them. He really does look down upon the shelled creatures, but we'll come back to that later. When the shell creatures find the children, Kaz heads on over and he's like, okay, I'm going to take you in now. Don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm going to return you home. And the kids are obviously like, we can't return home. The First Order has basically destroyed it. And they mention Kylo Ren, which is pretty cool, just because I like how... I like hearing names mentioned and stuff in the shows without having to show them, just because it kind of builds the universe up a bit more and makes them feel like they're in the same universe as the movies. But we get that feeling through the stormtroopers and stuff, and Poe and other things anyway, but just getting more and more names dropped is pretty cool. I also like how no one really knows who Kylo Ren is apart from in the Resistance, because I guess he's kind of like Darth Vader in that way, where not many people know about him, he's kind of more of a myth, which is really cool. I really like that idea. So obviously Kaz changes his mind, he's not going to hand them into the First Order, and it turns out that he'd actually hurt the girl's leg earlier and she really needed some meds. So they go out and they try and get the meds, and they run into some stormtroopers after they've got the meds, and they have to run. They go down like a chute and they keep getting chased by First Order stormtroopers. One thing I really like about this show is that the stormtroopers aren't silly like in the original trilogy and other stuff like that. The First Order stormtroopers are quite menacing in this, and like, even though they don't land any of their shots, they get really close, and that one last shot they shoot off before the door shuts would have hit them if the door did not shut. So I definitely feel a lot more intimidated by the First Order stormtroopers compared to previous stormtroopers, which is only a good thing. So basically, Kaz comes up with a plan. He basically manages to fix his mistakes as usual. They help out the girl, and then they jump out a chute, but they go underneath it rather than into the water, and they send one of the turtle people down there because it was mentioned earlier on by Miku that they could slow down their life systems. So it basically looked like to the First Order that the kids were down there in the water and they were drowning. So then they leave, it's all good, the shelled creatures say that the kids can live with them, and it all wraps up nicely. And something I've got to say that I really like about this show is how all the loose ends are tied up really neatly at the end. Like, not one thing is mentioned, I don't think, apart from in jokes and stuff, that isn't talked about later on and, like, finished off. For example, Miku mentioning the life systems and how they can be slowed down, that's actually put to use later on, it wasn't just some random line of dialogue. And like in a previous episode when Kaz mentions his trophy and how much it means to him, and then he actually sacrifices it to save someone's life later on. It's just all these small lines of dialogue that are mentioned and then they're like tied up neatly in a nice bow later on that really makes the show feel better and much more thought out. And also at the end, Kaz gets the part he needed, which kind of shows kids that if you do the right thing, you will be rewarded as well. Which obviously doesn't always work out, but it's a good message to tell. And also, those shelled creatures that Kaz looked down on in the beginning, they actually helped out in the end, so it really does just tie everything up nicely. And teaches Kaz and the audience to not judge a book by its cover, which is also a very great message. Overall, this episode was really good. I wouldn't say it was my favourite, but it was definitely a very good episode, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing the next one. So far, the show's actually been really good. I know it gets a lot of backlash because of the art style and the childish trailers and stuff, but if you actually give it a chance and like let the characters mature, then I think it will definitely turn out okay. Just think back to Clone Wars Season 1 and Rebel Season 1. They pale in comparison to the later seasons just because they always start off childish and then they get darker as they go on. The thing is, we know that Kaz's dad is a senator, and we also know that the show will later play into the Force Awakens runtime, so we could see Kaz's dad get wiped out by Starkiller Base, and that could really set a new darker tone for the show. Obviously it's always going to be for kids, but so was the Clone Wars and so was Rebels. It will get darker and more mature as it goes on, and leave more for adults and, older audiences to explore. So far though, I'm having a great time with the show, it's a ton of fun, and yeah, I can't wait for the next one.